Hey guys, I'm Tyler and welcome back to the channel. As you guys probably know if you've been following me for a while, I have had a Harbor Freight dust collector with a Super Dust Deputy from Oneida cyclone setup that I built probably 2 or 3 years ago. That system has been working very well for me, but I noticed it was a little bit lacking in the new shop here. So I reached out to the folks at Oneida again who gave me the Super Dust Deputy for that original modification, and they just hooked me up with this brand new 3 horsepower Oneida V Systems Cyclone. This system's got everything. Big ol' 3 horsepower, 240 single phase motor up there. We got the Dust Sentry with the sensor down here so we can tell when our bin is full and we never back up our HEPA outfeed filter. You guys might wonder, with the Cyclone being so efficient, why don't we just exhaust outside? And the reason for that is we live in Michigan. It costs a lot of money to heat and I don't want to blow all of my heat outside. This is obviously not a woodworking build video, but it is something that is very vital to a safe and comfortable woodworking shop. Never before have I actually sat down beforehand and flipped through a manual, but there was a big ol' sticker on one of these boxes that said open first and manual included. So I sat down, took a look through the manual to make sure I had all of the parts needed, and then brought all of the boxes in. The motor section was very heavy, so be careful when you're moving that around, and unboxed everything. There was a ton of cardboard, nice and heavy duty stuff if you happen to need any cardboard for shipping. I am going to be using a wall mount bracket for this system so that I was able to tuck it closer into the wall versus the floor stand system, which is also an option. Following through the instructions, using the markings on the pieces themselves, I started the assembly, which started off with a couple of these clips, which allows you to use a threaded bolt to bolt everything together. One of the steps that happened multiple times over this assembly was putting some weather stripping down to prevent any air leaks. You need to be very careful with the placement of this so that you do or do not include bolt holes, giving you a nice tight seal and good suction. I took down my old modified Harbor Freight dust collector, which very quickly found a new home here in Southeast Michigan, and then disassembled some of the integrated shop piping. I brought the new V System Cyclone over, which is much larger than the old Cyclone, and put it where I thought I was going to want it. I'm glad that I took the time to do this step because after having the Cyclone in place and getting a better bearing on how it looked in that corner, I decided to change the orientation a little bit. More about that later. Laying out where I want to mount the Cyclone to the wall, and I am going to be making a 2x4 frame to hold the brunt of the weight from the floor so that I'm not hanging all that weight on the wall. Again, this is assembled using 2x4s, wood glue, and 2.5-inch coarse pocket hole screws. I then used some short lag bolts, which are not supplied by Oneida, to bolt the whole thing down to my 2x4 assembly. And the entire thing is bolted to the wall using 3-inch structural screws, right through the frame into the studs of the shop. I'm going to preface this segment by saying that doing what I'm going to do right now probably voids the warranty of the Cyclone, but I will clarify that with Oneida and let you know down in the description below. But as I was laying it out earlier, when you saw the filter coming out to this side, that was all well and good until I realized that the in-feed side of the jointer was going to be cut down by the width of the filter, which is at least a foot plus another inch or two up against the wall. So what I decided to do after a little bit of thinking was carefully measure the mounting holes in the top there, where they actually mount to this section here, and offset them by a couple degrees so that I could twist the filter mount towards the back wall, closer to the infeed side of the pipe. The 45-degree increment holes that they have in there currently would put it a little bit too close and you wouldn't be able to hang the filter, but doing this allows me to twist this around and get the filter kind of where it was with the old dust collector and get the infeed side of the dust collection going towards the main run of the shop instead of the back side, which will hopefully increase the efficiency, let alone the extra power that we're going to get with this new system. Here you can see the location of 2 of the holes that I have already drilled. I carefully laid out the location of these new holes using a digital set of calipers and then carefully drilled out the new holes. Now, if you are not going to be changing the orientation of your cyclone, you can skip right to this step, which is the assembly. It comes in 3 different parts, not including the motor, and you need to bolt them together with the weather stripping in between. And here you can really see where my new orientation holes come into play, allowing me to move the filter much closer to the inlet pipe. I am bolting through those holes right now. Upgrading to this Oneida V systems, I am moving from a quote-unquote 2 horsepower Harbor Freight motor to a 3 horsepower 240 motor, but the big difference is this massive impeller. The Harbor Freight was either 7.5 or 8, I don't actually remember, but the impeller on this monstrosity is 15 inches. This is going to be so much more powerful. I don't actually recommend lifting the motor into place on your own, but with a little balance and proper technique, it wasn't really that bad. Here's where we stand right now. The old dust collector was 110, this one's 240, so I ran new 12 gauge wire and a 2-pole 20 amp breaker in the panel, so we got the power here. In an effort to get this going, I'm going to jimmy rig the end feed a little bit. Oneida does have an adapter that fits right in here and can take you down to 4 inch if that's what you want. I know that's not the best solution, but for right now I'm going to use the ducting that's in the shop and we'll upgrade that to a larger diameter at some point in time. But to get this going, I ordered these adapters from Amazon, and I had to put a little bit of weather stripping on the outside here to make this one fit nice and snug. We'll tape that one down, and then we have our adapter down to 4 inches. A couple of modifications to my existing pipe setup, and I had the inlet all piped in. Now I have come up with the layout of the ducting in my shop on my own, but Oneida does offer a free service if you're going to be purchasing a unit from them, where they will design the most efficient layout for you. And then it was on to a little bit more weather stripping to get the plenum for the filter installed and in place. Overall, it took me about 3 evenings, hour and a half, 2 hours a piece to assemble this unit. It went together very well, good hole layout, didn't have to finagle with anything besides my personal reorientation of the plenum. The filter attaches with some J-bolts through this metal plate that I am installing on the outlet pipe. Having used Oneida in the past and being a great company, that helped my decision to reach out to them in the first place, but they offer a wide range of solutions, and a 3 horsepower with a larger cyclone was what would fit in my shop the best, and that was the biggest reason for reaching out to Oneida for a second time. You might be wondering what this next little portion is that I'm putting into the filter, and this is actually a silencer which helps lessen the sound of your dust collector.
Hey, I brought the truck. We're bringing the truck. You're sending, okay, Daddy? No, eat. I bet that would be fun. And everything. Why does it have a hole right here?
You gotta put that big bucket underneath.
What bucket?
The cyclone connects to the dust bin with this flexible clear hose. I found it was easiest to push it on with a flathead screwdriver, being sure not to puncture the hose.
Whoa.
It won't fit? Won't fit where?
What are you gonna do with this?
It's gonna connect to that one.
I like it.
You like it?
Mm-hmm.
Once the flex hose is installed, there is a small ground strap that will jump from the cyclone to the top of the dust pail, and that needs to be put in with some self-tapping screws that are supplied by Oneida. There's also a ground wire that goes from the motor to the end of the outlet pipe and then to the filter itself. The system that I got comes with an integrated wireless remote, but my first time turning this on, I'm going to be using the on-off switch buttons. And now you can actually hear, without any changes other than putting the new cyclone in, how much dust it's actually picking up out of the old shop system. I'm also going to be installing a Dust Sentry, which has a sensor and a light which tells you when your dustbin is full and prevents you from overloading the dustbin and filling up and clogging your filter. I drilled a hole in the top of the dustbin using a step bit and then installed the sensor using the supplied gaskets and lock nut. The immediate results of upgrading the dust collector were obviously much more powerful, and then secondly, the Dust Sentry prevents any clogged filters in the future. And then I set what I thought was an appropriate depth using my hand for depth sensitivity and then my fingernail to adjust the sensor level settings. And here you can see when I move my hand close enough to the sensor, it will flash a light in the back corner of the shop telling me that the dustbin is full. And I can tell you from experience now, having filled this dustbin up 2 or 3 times, this is absolutely fantastic feature to have on your dust collector. Well, that is a wrap, guys. Super excited to have this in the shop. Way more powerful than my old system. Noticeable right from the get-go. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions for me, leave them down in the comments down below. And be sure to check out Oneida if you have a dust collection need in your shop. I'm DIY Tyler. You guys have a good one.